Welcome to the Forge Truth Podcast, where we are building great men as God defines greatness. Forge is a movement of men with a mission to help all men realize they're the deeply beloved, redeemed sons of the Most High God. I'm your producer, Zach, and I'm here to discuss the issues that affect men the most with our two hosts, Dr. Pete Alwinson, lifelong pastor and leader of Forge, and Jayson Quiñones, bishop of Core Faith Church in Oviedo, Florida. Men, welcome to the show.
Hey, here we go.
We are here.
And I didn't even kiss your ring this morning, and I'm not gonna.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's all right.
I mean, you are the bishop, but I'm not gonna kiss your ring.
It's all right. I appreciate that.
All right, okay, good.
He's humble. He's a humble man.
I know. I love it. I love it.
He doesn't need it. He likes it. He doesn't need it.
He could crush me. All he has to do is flex his biceps, and I'm in trouble.
Yeah, this whole table flips up.
That's right.
We're in the splash zone right now of his.
Oh my goodness.
Well, we're, Jayson, we're outnumbered today by Peters.
Yeah.
There's too many Peters in this room.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I think
Whoa.
so.
I don't know.
So, yeah.
Steadfast Rocks right here.
Peter Hamilton. What a name, man. The Rock.
Yeah.
Good to have you with us.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah. Peter Hamilton.
Yeah. Can we call you The Rock?
Sure.
Just
He was a rock before the Rock was a rock.
Yeah.
I think.
Absolutely.
He was the original
Absolutely.
Rock.
Yeah,
that's right.
absolutely.
Well, the second Rock, because the first Peter, he was the Rock,
Okay, I'll give you that.
right?
Whatever that. Yeah.
Yeah, Peter, Saint Peter,
I know. I know of him.
Yeah.
It's my name.
You heard of him?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
The good doctor is going to tell us a little bit about Peter, and welcome to the show.
Well, Peter is a longtime friend. I don't know how many years now we've known each other, but Brad Merrill introduced us. So we've been friends for a long time. Peter's in real estate. Before that, he was a Marine. And before that, well, Peter, you need to tell us more about your family and all that kind of stuff. And we're going to talk about fathering because you're a father of 3 great sons. And we're going to have fun talking about that. But tell us about your family background and where you grew up and a little bit about the Marines, and then we'll jump into family.
Well, we ought to have a little issue this morning, too, because I'm a first-generation Jamaican from, my parents were
Jamaican.
Yes, so my parents were born in Jamaica. Dad came over in 1965, worked his butt off to establish a home for my mom to follow suit in 1966. Maybe not that far out, but, came over first, immigrants here to the United States, earned their way up, and God blessed them to having us kids. I guess you can call it a blessing. And, just made a way for them throughout all of their lives to provide for us and for examples of just great parents, flawed, but perfect for what God designed for us 3 kids to have. And we're reaping the blessing of their hard work. God's grace upon them throughout the years.
So you have an older brother and a younger sister or older sister?
I have 2 older siblings.
You're the baby,
My
huh?
older brother, David, my older sister, Can. Also, I have to make sure, my dad gets the credit. My dad was the first man I ever admired on this earth. There's only 2 I've admired, my dad and my brother, David, who... This will be news to him to hear that. But anyway, yeah. But my beef here is, hey, grew up in Massachusetts, so New England Patriots fan, and you ripped on my Patriots today very nicely.
Man.
And I was like, wow.
That was rough for them.
That was rough.
It was a rough day.
The ridicule I received after
I can
the game,
imagine.
too.
Shame and abuse.
Insult to injury.
Listen, the Seahawks were favored anyway.
Yeah.
And they did a great job. It was a defensive game, I think. Did you watch that?
Very, very.
Yeah, I mean, the defenses were fighting.
Boring, very
kicking.
boring game.
Yes.
Yeah, but...
And New England, they were young.
Yes.
There
We'll
was
be
a lot
back again.
And Josiah noticed that. He was listening much more than I was, and he was like, yeah, they just said like a bunch of their guys are like young, and they're young. Inexperienced.
How old is the quarterback?
He's 23.
Yeah.
And a Christian.
And a Christian.
Yes.
Married already.
Yeah.
And so a
Stand-up
lot of
guy.
good. They'll be back.
Yeah.
They'll be back.
Yeah.
So you're dealing
We'll
with
get
your
it next
grief. Maybe. I don't know. That's great.
Let me ask you a question real quick. So I had a friend. He was a brother in our church that was Jamaican, and he taught me the principle of measure twice, cut once. Right? That he said that was a Jamaican thing. I don't think that's true, but anyway. But he did say this, and I don't know if this is true either. So I'm asking. He said that if according to Jamaicans, work ethic is a big deal,
Huge.
and if you don't have 3 jobs, you're lazy.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely can be understood that.
Okay.
Jamaicans have extreme hard work ethic.
Yeah.
Very prideful people believe that, they're not into the being assisted as much as them working and earning their keep, basically.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that you can say of every Jamaican. Yeah. They are hard work ethic, great culture people.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great to know. Yeah. My son Joel would put it the other way. He'd say, measure twice, cut once, measure again, cut again. You got to be real careful on that. But at any rate, so your brother was in the military too.
Yeah.
You went into the Marines.
West Point grad.
West Point grad. Wow.
Yeah, did exceptional in his life.
That's incredible. Well, now, Marines. How long were you in the Marines, and where did you do your
Marine Corps for 6 years? Wow. Reservist, served over in Iraq.
Wow.
And it was a interesting love-hate relationship.
Basic training is a piece of cake, right?
Oh yeah. No, I cherish the friendships that I've had from having served and the time that I had to serve. Each year that goes by, I'm more grateful that I wore the uniform in the United States Marine Corps.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, wait, I'm sorry because we didn't ask this, but so did you grow up like in a Christian household, or did you come to faith later in life? So, tell us about that.
So interesting. So I actually accepted the Lord when I was 9, and I was actually watching a war movie with my mom. And asked her about what it is to be saved. I was the first of the 3 siblings to be saved.
Wow.
And my mom basically led me to the Lord. And shortly thereafter, my brother and sister became Christians as well. So we grew up in a household where my parents, surrendered, understanding the grace and mercy of Jesus Christ can do, and, supporting a family. And without him, there wouldn't have been a family.
Wow.
And he was the root of their marriage. He was the root of who they are. And, flawed as we are, he still found a way of loving us and blessing us.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what was the war movie? Do you remember?
I have no idea what the war. I have only the vision of kneeling by the bed and watching the movie. And it was a black and white movie. And then asking questions of my mom and then her leading me and helping me to accept the Lord as my Savior.
Wow.
Incredible. We share that in common. My mom led me to the Lord too. Yeah. What little boy doesn't need to come to Christ? We know it by 8 or 9 that we've sinned. That's a great story. So even through the Marines, you followed Jesus as best you could. I mean, I bet that was tough.
Flawed, but yes.
Yeah, right. I know, man. Oh. Yeah. And then you got married after.
Mm-hmm.
Married Stacy after the Marines.
Married Stacy after the Marines.
And
actually got engaged right after I got on the DEP program. And I'd already gone through college. And so it's like, what are you doing? Wait a minute. You want to get married and you join the Marines now? So, came home from boot camp, got married after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's incredible.
Wanted to serve. Something said to me, I had to serve in the United States Marine Corps, or serve this country, wear the uniform of the country. That was the main thing, because I had already gone through college. I didn't need the GI Bill or anything.
Hey, so. we were at lunch staff meeting last week at Mission Barbecue, and 2 young Marines came in. Well, one was a little bit older because he was sergeant. I could tell by the stripes, but they have the best uniforms. Okay, my dad was Army, but Marines have the best uniforms.
Dress blues are definitely the best. Yeah.
They were in dress blues too. They were to the nines. It was really good. All right, well, 3 sons. God entrusted you with 3 sons.
3 blessings. Yes.
Good night. Let's talk about that. And let's talk about fathering. What are some of the lessons you've learned about fathering sons and being a dad in those contexts?
I'm still learning very much. The jury's much, out still. My sons are my passion. And I've told you before, each one of them was born for a predestined purpose. That Jesus Christ laid upon me to ensure that they understood was the word that defined them. My oldest was born for greatness, Devon. My middle son was born for excellence, and he's Peter Jr. And then the third son was born for leadership. Now, I didn't just randomly pick these words, but there's something about the characteristic of each one of these sons that reflected that word, that I believe that as they get older, God will, through his grace and mercy, show them how to define that word in their character. I also believe that the Lord led me to give them those words so that the whole belief of generational curses wouldn't exist as it relates to their character, and that their character would be defined on how Jesus Christ wants them to live and abide in him through that particular word for their character.
Wow. What are those words again?
Greatness, excellence, and leadership for each one of those boys.
That's good.
That is really good. And I have never thought of that idea that we ought to give a word to our children. Like
I think it's a very biblical idea. I mean, the idea of giving a blessing to your children, and it's like a specific blessing that's meaningful and carries weight. I think that's awesome.
Wow.
Well, I mean, that was obviously the whole part of the naming process, right? Of naming our children. And not our children now, but at that time period, you spoke that destiny, that purpose into their lives by naming them. So how old are your kids, your sons, when these words came to you for them?
Well, I told Devon from the time he was 5, and Omar from birth, basically, and Malachi from birth as well. Yeah. That is the word that defines them. Funny thing is in leading a men's group at one point, I led a freedom group for my church, and I was telling them about how I'd predestined those boys, and if they were to walk through the door, and you were to ask them what is the word that is defining them, they would know. And so my youngest was upstairs, and he came randomly downstairs right after I said that, and one of the guys looked and said, "Hey, let's test him. Let's see if he actually knows the word he's supposed to live up to in his life." So he says, "Hey, Malachi, what were you born for?" He says, "Leadership." They all looked at each other like, wow, he knows it, he gets it. So it's all actually at the end of the day, it's between them and Jesus Christ. It's not because I said the word as much as it's between them and Jesus Christ to understand that regardless of all the trials, pitfalls, ebbs, flows of life, that is the word that is admonished upon them to live up to in the name of Jesus. Yeah.
That's so cool. How many boys never receive a calling from their fathers, right?
That's right.
That's amazing.
Well, I was going to say, I love that. It's like, to me, you've given your sons, and I think dads, take this for what it is, but you've given your sons an anchor, throughout the rest of their days, where it's like, man, Malachi is going to know I'm not a follower. As he grows, right, he's gonna realize, man, I'm called to be a leader, and that's something that's built, and what I love is the boldness in that, in the clarity of, like, man, greatness, leadership, right, and then the humility and, like, hey, man, I'm gonna instill this, I'm gonna speak this into you and over you and encourage you in it, but it's ultimately between you and Jesus, because I'm not even though, like you said, I predestined, I'm not the predestiner, right? I'm not the author and finisher, but God gives us as dads such a unique role of just speaking life. And I love this because it's such a great reminder for dads in the times that we live, that, hey, when you read those Bible stories of fathers blessing their sons, man, don't minimize the calling and authority God has given you.
No, absolutely. In fact, young men, take a page, take note of this out of your playbook for life, and do that with your sons and daughters. Pray that God would give you a word, and it's not too late for us to do that even. This is, we always often say at Forge, but I haven't said it in a while, that identity, the blessing from God, the blessing has to come from the Father.
Yeah.
It has to come from the Father. You cannot earn an identity. You cannot earn a destiny. It is bestowed by a Father.
Yes.
And so we have to understand our role there, how privileged we are to do that. That is dynamite. I love that. I love what you said, Bishop. I think it gives it a little bit. It's a vision for the future, an anchor for the soul, a vision for the future. Yeah. But it's not a guilt thing.
Right.
It's a visionary thing.
Yeah.
But guilt maybe when young men are going through wild times and they need that anchor to pull them back.
Well, and let me say this too. You know, I think guilt, we might think of that as a wrong word. And I say this because somebody was I don't remember who I was listening to, or reading, but they were saying, you know, we don't know we don't generally encourage our kids the way that we should. And it might have been Raising a Modern Day Knight. That might have been where I read it. But the point was, we think of encouragement as like, you got an A, man. Hey, man, good job.
Great job. Yeah.
Right? But encouragement is provoking them to greatness, provoking them to excellence, provoking them to leadership, right? It's like, man, you're a leader. Don't forget that. And every time, you know what, and when I walk by you, it's that encouragement to the soul. This is who you are. It's man, it's so powerful. Man, I feel the Lord. I'm like, and my Pentecostalness came out. I mean, it's strong for sons, man, for them to hear that. You know,
it's not a term limit either. That's a lifelong obligation of a dad to a son. It doesn't stop once they reach the 18 years of age and they become a father. It's a lifelong admonition to place on their heart.
And Peter, you had that. Well, the three of us did not have fathers that put their fatherly blessing on us till later in life. Your dad did for sure. But we didn't have that, and most men don't. So you represent passing on the way it's supposed to be. Father to
as scary as that is.
It's scary. It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a big role. It's a burden. Now you have a unique situation here because you have two older and one younger.
Yes.
Talk about that.
My oldest, in answering your question earlier, my oldest is 30. Devon's married and one son and expecting another. And then Omar is married and he has a daughter and a son. And he's expecting another.
Wow.
So I'll have a total of 5 grandkids by the year's end, which is
great.
crazy. And then just reminding myself, you have a 15-year-old in the midst of all that. It's a very cross-generational, interesting time frame, that's for sure.
So Malachi is 15.
Yes.
What grade is that, by the way?
9th.
9th
Yes.
grade.
Yeah. So I'm curious, and this is, I don't know if it happened or not, but have your sons taken the same posture as you have in speaking that word over their kids?
You know, that's a chapter yet to unfold. What's interesting is Devon, when I went and I met my grandson for the first time when I went to visit him, he asked me, how did you come up with the word for me? Because I'm trying to think of a name for a word for Adonis, and I can't quite figure out. And I said, I just have to pray about it and see what the Lord impresses on your heart. Yeah. So I know Devon is consciously thinking about that.
Yeah.
Omar said something interesting to me on that same trip too, which was humbling. He said, Daddy, Devon and I had discussed about, being dads to sons in particular. And then we know that God has it for us to have sons at some point in time. Both of us are having sons at some point. And it was because of how we were raised. And he said, I don't want that to get to your head, though. I'm like, thanks, Omar. I appreciate that.
So, that's right. Our sons always want to keep us humble, right?
They're
very good at that, especially the youngest one.
That's funny, man. That's awesome, though, because they're pursuing that. Yeah. That marked them. So again, it marked them to where they want to be able to instill that. So that's a beautiful thing, man. I love this.
That is fantastic. And you have brothers. And you're one of 3 brothers, aren't you?
3 brothers and a sister.
Wow.
Yep.
Big family. And are you the baby or what?
I'm the youngest. We're all 4 a year apart. So all 4 of us were in high school at the same time.
Wow.
So it was boy, girl, me. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you have a boy and a girl. You're passing that on to both of them, the gospel on to both.
Totally. I was trying to think of if my dad had ever spoken like a blessing or like a word over me. And to be honest, this is kind of sad. The only thing I could think of is once he told me, Zach, you have no common sense. That's the only thing I could think of. It was the closest to what he did. So I love what you did. And I apologize if I ever do something without common sense.
Oh,
But I had 2 older brothers. And so I was the baby, but we were so close in age. It's very different from Micah's situation.
Yeah, Malachi. Yeah,
Malachi, sorry,
Malachi.
yeah.
You know, you knew he was a minor prophet of some sort.
Yeah.
You know,
I was like, is it Jonah?
yeah. You know that it's amazing. Our family environment is part of our complexity as men. It really is, and you know, our relationship to our dads and moms, our cultural background, and how we're raised. And we have different cultures here right around this table. And, you know, my dad was Venezuelan and Norwegian. He was both. And so he brought a lot of that machismo in. You know, it's interesting what you said. You remember your dad saying, you don't have what?
Common sense.
Common sense. I'm not sure I remember anything my dad said to me. Really, except that need to achieve, don't mess up. Don't mess up the standard. You know, that's really what I came away with, which is not a blessing. It's not a blessing. It's really sort of that independence. Yeah. Do you have anything from your childhood that you remember?
Yeah, I mean, for my, definitely not, you know, my uncles or my grandfather, you know, I mean, I have sayings, you know, that they would say.
Yeah, but they can't be repeated.
But yeah.
You're cruising for a version.
But, you know, for my dad, when he got saved, I remember, you know, I shared this in a sermon, I think recently. He told me, he was like, real men serve Jesus.
Amen.
Yeah, real men. And he told me that after I had already known him for probably 5 years, and you know, before that, it was real men did X, Y, and Z,
right?
And without saying that, you know, that's just the example. But when he came to faith, that was one of the first things he wanted to instill. Like, a real man serves Christ, and so I would say that I can't say that I know that he always tried to push me to be entrepreneurial. Like, hey man, let me give you some ideas. Like, always trying to think about my future, trying to build in that work ethic. You know, like, hey man, you know, those types of things. Work smarter, not harder. So I would say those are some of the big key takeaways from my father. But yeah, I could definitely go over all kind of negative words spoken, and you know, those like things that are like, man, they're demoralizing. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, you had a father that built into your life, and a mother very close to your mom. She's with Jesus now, and your father's still alive, and you are in contact with him a lot. I know, and
yeah, you know, it's interesting because my dad in particular, I always saw as the man I admired for one huge reason is that he was present. And, you know, my dad had not grown up with a father figure, didn't grow up with this, you know, in a traditional household of mom and dad. In my many estimations, he grew up, you know, a victim of circumstance, and the times he was a kid who just, you know, was blessed with salvation early in life. You know, by the age of 18. And as a result of his salvation, God brought my mom into his life, and then they got married young. But, you know, he could have cried victim, oh, woe is me, I never had a father, I never had a mom who raised me. And what Jesus Christ embodied in him then became the blessing to us 3 kids. So the biggest thing I admired is he didn't cry victim.
Yeah.
He cried presence of the Lord.
I love it.
And as a result of that, he was present as a father. And he worked his butt off as an odd body man growing up. So, you know, he taught himself a trade, and he became very good at that trade. He didn't buy new cars. He always bought wrecked cars and fixed them up like new. My mom didn't necessarily always love that because sometimes she had to wait for a car. So she said, you know what, I'm going to buy myself my own car at some point. But, you know, he was a hard worker. And by the time it was retirement stage, he said, no, I'm not going to retire because I still want to do some more work on the side. And he worked up until like age 72.
That's great.
Just because he just wanted to do it, you know, keep himself busy.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So he didn't cry victim, and that's really an example for men that didn't have the kind of environment that they needed. He broke the cycle and did it right, and that's what the gospel does. It enables us to break the cycle of the past and move into a new life. So you and your brother and your sister have had this model, and now you've been leading your family. Now you two are grown, and you got a 15-year-old around the house. How do you? And they're in different parts of the country. I think out west and then up north, right? Virginia and Dallas.
Yeah, Devon's Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado.
Omar's in Louisiana.
Like I said, yeah, right. But how do you tie your family together? How do you keep giving leadership? And I think you do this in a really great way.
Fortunately, we are able to schedule family FaceTime every other week, where we have our the time to see on video everybody's faces and share about what's going on, what we need prayer for, and the grandkids are always the spotlight now because you get to see the growth and activity. And Zaylee comes on, my beautiful granddaughter, and lights up the cameras with her smile and energy.
Oh, man.
And then, of course, now you got the Adonis and Jaziel, my two grandsons, who are learning to walk. And so all that takes up a lot of the FaceTime, but then we always make sure we dedicate the last portion of the time for family prayer requests, in which each one of them can lift up a prayer and a blessing that we can pray over and end the call that way.
How did you get your grown children to do that, even before the kids? Because you've been doing this before the kids were born, right?
Yeah.
You've been doing it for years.
So funny thing is, I was thinking about it, and Stacy was convicted about it at the same time. And then Stacy sent out a text message, unbeknown to the fact that I was thinking about it at the same time. So we were both being convicted about the same thing. And the boys immediately jumped on the opportunity.
Wow.
It was initially every week. And then it was like, well, let's just make it every other week. We can still catch up every other week with everything.
Life is crazy. Your older two are what we call full throttle. They're, the throttle's open, they're busy.
They're busy, yes.
And so it is hard to pull it all together.
But it just speaks to the level of how tight your family is, that they'll make that a priority and make that happen. I think that's amazing.
That is a great point. And I think a lot of dads struggle to discipline their sons and their daughters as they're growing up, because I want to be close, I want to be friends, or they're just too passive as a man. Even if and when the boys are young, you got to do a lot of hands-on. No, yes, this, this is what you got to do. You got to do a lot of parenting, and dads don't need to be afraid of parenting. Father your sons and tell them you love them, and if you get angry at them, tell them you're sorry, but keep moving toward them. And in adulthood, they'll be closer to you if you do that work.
That's a challenge, though, when you think about the generations that I have in particular, because I know my youngest he gets away, and everyone knows he gets a lot away with a lot more than his brother and sister.
And the older sons know it, right?
Yes, I am not the same man that I was with those two. And I've softened up considerably now at this stage of my life than I ever was when I was their father and when they were young. And it annoys me at times, but then, you know what? That's par for the territory. I'm enjoying the grandkids, and Lord willing, Malachi ends up being all the leader he's supposed to be, gets all the discipline he's supposed to have, despite me.
He will. Alexis is always saying, I grew up in Nazi Germany, Josiah's growing up in Switzerland. Like, whatever, bro.
There's a gap between your two as well. Yeah, and sure. We had the same deal. Yeah. Now our daughter Jessie, our old two sons think she got away with murder, but and your kids are right close together.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. So like growing up, I think all of us have a shared experience. We all grew up in the same tax bracket as each other, but kids are spread out by decades or whatever. All of a sudden their parents are like, different stage of life, different, all these kind of things. And so the kids have a very different experience. Sometimes there can be bitterness among the kids in that case.
Right. Right.
Have you experienced that at all with your kids?
No, I'm just, I can't thank God enough for the relationship the three of them have, that the age difference is not something that is like seen as a negative. His big brothers dote over him, but love to beat on him too, because he deserves it. He runs his mouth too much sometimes, but that is not something seen as bitterness between the three of them, even though they realize that he's being raised in a totally different way than they were.
I love that. One highlight was, I think it was at Christmas time, both of your older sons were in town and got together with my two older sons for lunch. And it was a real privilege for our family to meet your sons and see you with their dad. And they're great men. They're great men.
Appreciate that.
You know,
And
one thing we've been
so are yours.
one thing we've been talking about recently on the podcast is parenting adult children.
Yeah.
So, what's that been like for you to transition from parenting children to parenting your children as adults?
Mm-hmm.
How has that been for you, and how have you successfully managed that transition?
I don't know about the successful part. That's still very much yet to be determined. I'm still trying to figure that out more so with the older sons, trying now to establish more of a friendship with them because it's not my role to like tell them how to do things. I also am taking the lessons that I learned from how I was when I was their age and trying to apply it to having a deeper relationship with them. So a lot of prayer. I pray for them all the time. In fact, I sometimes think I concern myself more with them now as fathers than I did when they were younger. Because at least I could shape more of how things were then. Now it's more of relying and surrounding and understanding that Jesus Christ is going to take their hearts and mold it to what he wants it to be. So it's definitely a work in progress of now establishing and deepening the relationship. So seeing where the foundation has actually, molded into their character, and then trying to figure out that, hey, at the end of the day, it's not for me to be telling them anything, but receiving, listening, and trying to do whatever I can to be a complement to what they need to be in God's name.
I like that. There does have to be a transition in how you treat your children. Dads that never make that transition, they always have the parent-to-child relationship. I'm telling you what to do, or I have harsh words. That never works. That pushes kids away. So there does need to be that. And thank you for modeling that for us. And like you said, we learn on the job, don't we? And but you do have to change from that. Otherwise, you'll drive them away. That's good.
Yeah, and this is all theoretical for me again because I have young kids, but I would imagine that things like developing, disciplining your children, those are all like essentials for any dad to do. But if you actually want a relationship with them later on in life, there also has to be something that draws them to you. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be about who you are as a man, right? If they can respect you, if you're a man of integrity, someone who's interesting or fun, or like all these different things that will draw them to you, that's going to hold them closer to you. Whereas like some of those things like disciplining, could push a kid away, but there should be an opposite thing that draws them to you.
That's an excellent point. One of the things that I remember in reference to my dad in particular is, and I've often said, I know my dad's flaws. Okay. I know my dad's flaws and I love him regardless. And so, I would hope that my sons, when they look at me, they go, man, he's got some flaws, but I still love him regardless. Mm-hmm. They have that unconditional love. I think it was in Forge you had mentioned that men are go through life without having unconditional love, and that's what's needed most.
Yeah,
that has been something a message in which resonated in my spirit of saying, having unconditional love for my sons and embody that in how they are treated, so that they in turn hopefully can see that same thing through their love for me.
That's right. Wow. That's so, and I think you're absolutely right. There's we have to train them, we have to discipline them, but we got to love them and we got to have fun and we got to expose them to life. And there has to be that thing that brings them back.
Do you see yourself in your kids? Like, do you see your flaws in them?
Lord.
Do you see like your strengths in them, or are they just their own little people?
Well, unfortunately, I do see a lot of myself in each one of them. I would love, and I do believe that they are definitely, especially the older ones, forging their own character. I think that sometimes one of them in particular is trying very hard to fight anything that he sees of trying to be of me, because he wants to have his own identity and character. They're all going to be their own individual men regardless. And that's one of my prayers, is that they live up to the name, the word, and they forge their own individual character, regardless of who I was and who I am.
That's great.
Yeah, wow. That's really good.
There's so much here. I hope guys really take this to heart and come to Forge and sit at Peter's table and learn from him, because he shares it on a regular basis.
Yeah. And it's encouragement to all of us as fathers to be intentional with our kids and to really take the job seriously. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, Peter, thanks for coming on the show. Really,
I appreciate
it. Thank you, guys. I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode of the Forge Truth Podcast. If you have any questions or comments about what we talked about today, you can email the show at forgetruth.com. If you want to learn more about the Forge movement, you can check out our website at forgetruth.com. Jason, will you leave a challenge for our men today?
Yeah, guys, I hope that you listen to this podcast more than once and take some notes. One of the things that really just stood out to me in a big way is not to forget the authority that God has given you. He's delegated authority to you to empower your kids. And so use that authority wisely.